It has been raining all week here at St. Petersburg, and after the Formula Overdrive race yesterday, some people started getting concerned about passing at this track. In the Overdrive race, some cars attempting to make passes in some of the more narrow corners ended up driving straight into the tire walls. However, we did get some good news coming into today's Elite Series race. The rain is expected to let up today, possibly during the first round. Scott, it's all yours.
Thank you, Earl.
BIGSBY FOOTE wins the pole for round number 1, his second in a row. He catches CJ Cameron and the rest of the field sleeping and jumps ahead coming into turn 1. Here they come. They are all tiptoeing through the corner. They all get through clean. However, later in the lap, we start to run into some problems. Lucas Sweeney in the 8 gives Jason Kruger in the Pi car a pretty heavy shunt, and they are 4 wide with the Dangyo cars of Alexis Farr and David Jarrett. However, they get that sorted out pretty quickly. A bit further up the track, Dan McKay is going to get into the back of Taylor BRILLON in the 65. And you see that Libby Bell in the 24 got turned sideways coming off of the corner. It was actually Joseph Howard in the 17 that got into the back of her. He gives her a very light tap, but when you're running in the rain, that's all it takes to send a car spinning, and thankfully that wasn't a much bigger wreck. At the end of lap number 5, BIGSBY FOOTE continues to hold the lead. Taylor BRILLON is a lap down, and then it is Damien SNYDER second, CJ Cameron third, Michael MADRIGAL fourth, Harry ENOLA fifth, and here comes the rest of the field, mostly single file. These opening laps have been fairly clean aside from a few fender benders. And here's something a little bigger than a fender bender. Michael Madrigal gets into the back of CJ Cameron, and he gets a little shunt from Harry ENOLA, and he just nicks the tire barrier. Madrigal has some pretty heavy damage on that car, and he's going to have to pit to get it repaired. Looking back from Damien SNYDER in the 57, running in second place, you can barely see the third place car in the distance. However, SNYDER still has a fairly tight grip on BIGSBY FOOTE's lead. Both of these drivers have quite a bit of experience under their belts. BIGSBY FOOTE is in his 3rd ARLA season, while SNYDER is a former Team Master Cup Series driver, so it's not that surprising to see these two build a big cushion on the rest of the field. Here's Ricky Flush running in 6th, coming into the bend before the final corner, and he's going to lose control of the 31 car. He slides into the wall, and a few other cars pile in. Brenda Riggs, Packer Carroll, Edwin Schwartzlowski, Amy Patti. And behind them, Allie Riggs and Gary D'Souza are going to slide into the wall by themselves. And a few other cars compiling into that. Dale Underwood, Libby Bell. I think that's Benji Flynn in the 36. Kyle Gaffigan sneaks through, but Kyle Eckerton will not. And behind this incident, Nick Howard in the 611 is also going to spin into the wall. However, he will keep going without much of a problem. Whoa, Joel Rodriguez gets through and almost slaps the wall. The damage on Kyle Eckerton's car is terminal. He makes his way back to the pits. And Eckerton slams into the end of the pit wall, which pretty much ensures his retirement from the race. Nick Howard and Gary D'Souza are going to come back out onto the track after getting some repairs. And BIGSBY FOOTE goes into the wall as he is about to negotiate the lapped cars, allowing Damien SNYDER to get a run on him. But it looks like FOOTE is going to try to battle back coming into the bend. He has a nose on the 57 coming into the corner, and Damien SNYDER is going to slide into the wall. All that ground he gained on the 14 is now going to go to waste. Or is it? BIGSBY FOOTE quickly developed a tire rub after smacking the wall, and he's going to have to pit to get that repaired. This will hand the lead to SNYDER, and as you see behind the 57, CJ Cameron is creeping into the picture with Harry ENOLA, SNYDER's teammate, in tow. Here is Kevin Monroe in the 63 trying to negotiate the lapped car of Libby Bell. And he goes sliding into the wall, coming into the bend. And Amy Patti in the 73 slides right into the tire wall and out of the race. Patti brought home an impressive top 10 in her first Elite Series race with MRD Motorsports, but it just wasn't meant to be today as she goes hard into the tire wall, trying to avoid the 63. Here is CJ Cameron, the debut winner at Texas last week, running in the 2nd position. He goes sliding into the wall, coming out of the bend, and he gets clipped by Harry ENOLA in the 45. Unfortunately for Cameron, he is going to have to pit for repairs, but ENOLA kept going. Matas Kazimieras tries to work his way around the lap car of Libby Bell. Bell goes a little bit too wide and runs right into the tire barrier, taking herself out of the race. Bad day gets worse for Bell, who had a top 10 run at Texas last week. Damien SNYDER is the first to hit the pit lane for routine stops. However, Bruce Wilkinson stays out a little while longer in order to gain some time on the 57. Nick Howard in the 611 is fighting to stay on the lead lap. Kyle Gaffigan is running very well behind the wheel of the Atzero Technologies car, the same team that he drives for in Formula Overdrive. In fact, Gaffigan won the pole for the Overdrive race yesterday, but unfortunately he crashed out on the first lap. But today he is certainly redeeming himself, running well inside the top 10. Bruce Wilkinson gives up the lead to hit the pit lane. Kyle Gaffigan in the 05 is in, as well as Andy Pearson in the 2. But Mamba Kumengu is going to stay out and assume the lead of the race. Kumengu decides that he can stay out a little bit longer than everyone else. By the way, Kumengu has come all the way from 30th on the grid to lead the race. I guess he's trying to follow up on his top 5 finish at Texas last week, and he is certainly doing so at the moment. Kumengu finally makes his way into the pit lane, which puts the race lead back into the hands of Damien SNYDER. And SNYDER has a huge lead on the rest of his competitors. You see Lucas Sweeney right behind the 57, but Sweeney is a lap down. Here's another bad day that is about to get worse. BIGSBY FOOTE in the 14 spins his car coming out of the bend. And then a few other cars decide to join the party. Jacob Eichholz and Edwin Schwartzlowski go into the wall. Here comes Michael Madrigal. Packer Carroll goes hard into the tire wall. Brenda Riggs sneaks through, and then Ricky Flush hard into the 71. Flush sees the mess up ahead, but doesn't quite react very well, and he slides his car right into the back of Packer Carroll. Carroll is going to go out of the race, but everyone else involved continues. Here is Bruce Wilkinson running up in the top 5, however he overdrives turn 2 a little bit and goes sliding into the wall. Wilkinson goes on without a problem, but he does lose a spot to Mamba Kumengu in the 152. Kyle Gaffigan gets caught in a 3-wide situation with Dale Underwood and Gary D'Souza and goes into the tire wall in the process, and he gets clobbered by BIGSBY FOOTE. The very same thing happened to him in the Formula Overdrive race yesterday. Gaffigan is going to go out of today's race too, as well as BIGSBY FOOTE. Damien SNYDER kicks off the second round of pit stops. As you see, the rain is finally starting to let up, but Damien SNYDER's day does not brighten up along with the sky. He has a very slow pit stop. This is good news for the rest of his competitors, as they're going to try to scramble to get their stops done as fast as possible. Bruce Wilkinson made his way into the pits, but Mamba Kumengu once again stays out. And when Kumengu does pit, he comes out ahead of the 7. So a very nice pit strategy by the International Motorsport team puts Mamba Kumengu in the lead in the closing laps of the race, and you see from Bruce Wilkinson's onboard camera that it has finally stopped raining. However, the track is still very wet. Bruce Wilkinson is putting on one of the stellar showings that he became known for last season. Wilkinson drove the 7 car in only a few races last season, but he ran up front in almost all of them. His best finish came at Watkins Glen, where he finished second to Lucas Sweeney. Guess what? That was a rain race too. The 7 is going to be brought a little bit closer to the 152's back bumper when Kumengu gets held up by the Pi car driven by Jason Kruger. But Kumengu does not hesitate to get around Kruger. And Mamba Kumengu, in only a second start, is going to take his first ARLA Elite Series victory. Bruce Wilkinson comes home second to tie his best career finish. Andy Pearson just barely beats out Damien SNYDER for the 3rd spot, but nonetheless a nice recovery by SNYDER after that bad pit stop. Kevin Monroe finishes a fairly quiet 5th. CJ Cameron backs up his Texas victory with a 6th place run. The road racer Edwin Schwartzlowski comes home in 7th. Rookie shootout winner Jacob Eichholz brings home 8th. Scott Morales dove into the pits for some reason, coming to the checkered flag. I hope that was just a big miscommunication. However, he still manages to finish 9th, and then Mike Howard comes home in 10th. We will now go over to round 2. Kiriki Hitsuno won the pole coming off of her victory in yesterday's Formula Overdrive race. Rene Ricarmier tries to inch ahead of the 06 coming into turn 1, but he can't quite clear her. Leslie Riggs made an extremely aggressive and borderline reckless move going into turn 1. She got on the brakes much later than everyone else and almost took out Amy Harrison. However, it seems to have worked out for her as she gained at least 7 spots, but officials told her to be a little more careful. A bit further back, we have some first lap chaos as NAMI MURA turns leg roll in front of about half the field, causing a big stack up that results in a small pile up. DG Daniels gets turned around. Rachel Gonzalez, Wybert Scott, and Olivier Martinez also got some pretty big pieces of this incident. We're now riding on board with a man calling himself Dumo. He actually hooks and turns the 33 into the 5, and then gets a pretty big lick from AJ Young in the 55. A bit later in the lap, here is Jeremy West battling with Rip Tyler. He takes the corner wide and runs right into the tire wall. Kurt Walker has nowhere to go and runs into the back of the 77. Walker and West are going to drop out of the race. And then Henrietta Laverne, just a few seconds later, becomes the next victim of the tire wall. She drives right into it after running the corner wide. Rene Ricarmier got around Kiriki Hitsuno, and now he leads the race. Ricarmier hadn't even set foot in a stock car prior to the season, but it seems that he's adapted very quickly. Here is Jason Teller running fourth in his Zenith, trying to hold off Seichu Dejao in the Nomoto. Dejao is certainly not cutting him any slack. I think he may have gotten into the back of the 48 coming into that corner. Both of these drivers finished rather poorly at Texas. I believe they both got into accidents, but they're certainly redeeming themselves right now, even though we are still very early in the race. TYSON LAUTENSCHLAGER runs third in the CARROLL Link car. I believe this is that team's second attempt at running a third full-time car in the past few years. But this time it seems to be working out for them, and Lautenschlager has been a fairly solid driver in his few ARLA starts. Leslie Riggs seems to have an odd pit strategy to complement her odd turn 1 maneuver. She pits on lap 5 along with Rip Tyler and Holden Roberts. Alex Carson also pulls into the pits on lap 5. I'm not entirely sure what these drivers are counting on, but it'll be interesting to see how it works out for them. Shane Lake goes into the wall while battling with Jared Anderson, and that seems to have done some internal damage. He immediately falls off the pace. And then he doesn't seem to be paying any attention at all when Armand Mitro goes to pass him. Mitro is Lake's teammate, by the way, running a limited schedule this season. He tried to make the turn, but it appears that Lake just kept going straight. Ricarmier still has the lead at the end of lap 10. Mitro pitted for repairs and fell a lap down. Kiriki Hitsuno and TYSON LAUTENSCHLAGER are a good distance back. Amy Harrison runs 6th. Seichu Dejao and Ricky Navarro 7th and 8th. And you see the rest of the field make their way down the front stretch. You might have noticed Ricky Navarro running a different paint job this week. It's been a while since we've seen him in a pink car. The internet cartoon Starshine Sally will be on that 34 for a few races this season, starting with this weekend. No matter where Navarro runs through the day, that car is going to be very hard to miss. Speaking of hard to miss cars, Derek Dunning is running in 20th. Dunning and his team have generated a lot of controversy since preseason testing, what with his extremely slow pace and some of the things he's been saying to the media. However, today he's actually showing some speed, and I think I saw a few people in the pits actually scratching their heads when they looked at the leaderboards. Jason Teller in the 48 continues to run in the 4th spot, and then he goes into the wall and collects Bob Steffens in the 211. Teller would develop a tire rub on that car, and he would have to pull into the pits to get that repaired. That is, if he had actually made it into the pits. I'm not sure what happened there, but Teller just seemed to drive straight into the pit wall like his teammate Kyle Eckerton did in round 1. I hope that was because of some kind of problem Teller had with the car, because I would think it's reasonable to expect your driver to avoid running straight into a wall. Speaking of driving into the wall, that's what Ricky Navarro does after trying to get around the lapped car of Olivier Martinez. Tough break for Navarro, who also crashed out at Texas last week. Rene Ricarmier heads into the pits on lap 16, and all of the other leaders come in on that same lap. We don't have as much risk-taking as we had in round 1. This is going to put Leslie Riggs in the lead because she pitted on lap 5, but Riggs would have to stop a few laps later, and this puts Ricarmier back in control. Le Gruel took the 2nd spot from Kiriki Hitsuno. Gruel found his way into the pits, unlike his teammates. Gruel flipped his car at Texas, but so far he is redeeming himself. Niko Petrov had a bad start to his season as well, but today he is running up inside the top 10. Cash Racing operates in the VSCC, and they opened up an ARLA team for this season, and so far I don't think they're going to be regretting that. Amy Harrison is another driver who had a less than stellar season opener, yet is running up inside the top 10 today. It seems that a lot of today's frontrunners had problems of some kind last week. This year, Harrison is running a full schedule in both ARLA and the TM Lights, where she is driving for Alexis Rainsford's team. Rene Ricarmier has opened up a huge lead over the rest of his competition. There goes the 0 car, and we are waiting on 2nd place. That green car you see is AJ Young. He's a lap down. Derek Dunning is also a lap down and still on the track, amazingly enough. Toby Armstrong is coming. He is also a lap down. And there is LAVERNE in second place, followed by Kiriki Haitsuno, Tyson LAUTENSCHLAGER, Bob Steffens, and Nico Petrov. Despite having made 2 pit stops already, Leslie Riggs sits 9th with James West in 10th right behind her. The field has gotten so spread out that the extra stop has not hurt Riggs that much, but we're still confused as to why she did it in the first place. With about 15 laps left, René Ricarmier kicks off the second round of pit stops, and once again the rest of the leaders are going to follow suit, except for Tyson LAUTENSCHLAGER, who actually stays out an extra lap to try to gain some time. Once again, Leslie Riggs will get to lead a few laps before coming in for her third stop when this is clearly a 2-stop race. René Ricarmier again reassumes the lead when everything cycles out. Ricarmier has been walking away with this race, and keep in mind, this is only a second start. LAVERNE continues to run second, but Nico Petrov has worked his way up to the third spot. Kiriki Haitsuno's pit crew doesn't seem to be all that fast, and she has fallen back to fourth. Cletus McGuffey's engine lets go on him. The Ozark Steed has not been that fast so far, and it appears it is not that reliable either. And Kiriki Haitsuno almost runs into the back of the 04. And behind this, Shane Lake runs the corner wide while battling with Rip Tyler and goes into the wall. And the damage on that car would be terminal. And then Tyson LAUTENSCHLAGER will go straight into the tire wall. However, he manages to keep going. In fact, he doesn't even need to pit for repairs. And moments later, LAUTENSCHLAGER's teammate James West does the exact same thing. West would also keep going without pitting for repairs. It appears that the CARROLL Revolution is a bit more durable than Shane Lake's Lenard Q9. There is a bit more to Shane Lake's story. While he's limping back to the pits, he gets shoved into the wall by Jared Anderson and then clobbered by Armand MITRO. Bob Steffens and CJ Dejau get through without a problem, as does Amy Harrison. AJ Young, however, was not so lucky. While reacting to the mess up ahead, he ends up sliding right into the tire barrier and out of the race. Tough break for Young, who was giving Team Burr a half-decent run, and René Ricarmier, in the midst of all the chaos, brings home his first ARLA Elite Series victory. LAVERNE finishes second in the Zenith, showing his teammates what the car can do when you don't drive it into the pit wall. Nico Petrov, in his second start, gives Cash Racing its first top 5 finish. Kiriki Haitsuno follows up her Formula Overdrive victory with a 4th place run. Leslie Riggs managed to finish 5th despite her team's odd pit strategy. Tyson LAUTENSCHLAGER brings it home in 6th. I believe that's one of his best finishes here in the ARLA Elite Series. James West finishes 7th, putting 2 CARROLL Inc. cars in the top 10. Jared Anderson finishes 8th in the Greaseburger car. Bob Steffens in the Tonnerre Thunder comes in 9th. The Tonnerre was very fast at Rockford last season, and it looks like we're starting to see more of that speed. And then CJ Dejau, after a very lackluster 2010, brings home his first top 10 of the season. Now, let's take a look at the points. Leaving St. Petersburg, Jacob Eichels, the rookie shootout winner, continues to hold the points lead. CJ Cameron and Mamba Kumengu are tied for second, 4 points behind Eichels. Bruce Wilkinson, Edwin Schwartzlowski, and Kevin Monroe are all tied for fourth, 21 points back. Damien Snyder sits 7th, Joseph Howard is in 8th, René Ricarmier jumps up to 9th with his victory, and Andy Pearson rounds out the top 10, 39 points behind Jacob Eichels. Now let's look at 11 through 20. Brenda Riggs sits 11th with Scott Morales in 12th. Ricky Flush drops to 13th after his issues today. Dale Underwood 14th. Jason Bates in 15th. Gary D'Souza 16th. The Lastro Autosport cars of Nick and Mike Howard are 17th and 18th respectively. Leslie Riggs sits 19th, and Bigsby FOOTE, with 2 consecutive poles, rounds out the top 20.